Move that to that.
Move this to this.
Yeah.
It's not working. Petra. Hey Pooh, I'm supposed to be going live with a friend of mine. We're discussing praise and worship tonight, but I can't figure out how to add her into my live view. So that's what I'm trying to figure out now. She's tried it, I've tried it, it's not working. I'm on, Petra. So if anyone knows how we can add her, please help. Hey Brenda, hey sister. Hopefully we can get this going soon. Wow, Weena.
I ain't get out of here.
Right there. Yes. I Wow! Hi! Oh my gosh. It only took us 19 minutes.
You know what? You know what? This is proof that our best laid plans.
Come on.
You know, I was like, you know what? We should have rescheduled for Monday. We should have.
No,
We
we're not
should
gonna let the
have.
devil win. That's not how we
We're not.
operate.
We're not. No. So what we're gonna do, since we're doing it from your page, I'll just share it to my page once we get done and all that jazz.
Okay.
Is that if that's the easiest way? Because I want us to go ahead and get started since everyone has
Okay.
kind of been waiting for us.
Yes, that's perfect.
And even though this is not my page, I'm totally going to do an introduction, even though it's your page. So guess what?
Go for it.
So everybody,
Do it.
I'm Petra. For those of you who don't know me, and I'm on Rihanna's page. And for those that do know me, I want to introduce you to my lovely, lovely little sister, Rihanna Childs, who is recently married this year, and who is
Yes.
expecting. And I'm believing that the child she's carrying is going to be a great gift and voice for God. But that being said, Rihanna is one of the most amazing praise and worship leaders that I know. And I say that because I've watched her grow in her gifting. And I have asked Rihanna to join me in the conversation on the culture, the current culture of praise and worship from the perspective of a worship leader. And so we're going to be covering, I think, three main questions. Is that right, Ree?
Yeah, 3.
Okay, perfect. So let's just go ahead and jump right in if you're ready to go.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about what you, as a praise and worship leader, look for in a church home.
So I really struggle with this question because there's so many things that I think praise and worship leaders look for.
Mhm.
But as you mature as a Christian, you realize that one of the main things that you need to be seeking first and foremost is a yes from God, like to make sure that's the place that you're even supposed to be. Because a lot of times we're chasing money, or we're chasing a sound, or we're chasing what this church has going on at the moment. So I think that making sure this is the right place for you is definitely the first thing that you do. However, I do feel like um, I do feel like you should definitely seek a leader who has a heart for worship as well. Reason being, you don't want to be stuck in a ministry where the leader is so focused on just preaching that he's so stuck, or he or she is so stuck to a template of what it should be like, that you're stuck trying to figure out how you can worship freely. I don't think that that should be something that is restricted. I think it's something that we should allow to happen throughout the service, regardless of what program says it should be.
I
So
agree.
definitely a leader who has a heart for worship and someone who's going to be open to allowing you to worship freely. Another thing I feel we should look for is other worshipers. You don't want to be worshiping alone, because as
Right.
a worship leader, listen, we'll talk about that later.
Right.
But
Oh,
no, we as worship leaders, we can't do it alone. It takes a team. We have to remember that a lot of people come to church because the music is on point. So I can't be over here giving it my all, and
I
you're
feel
in the
you.
alto section standing there like a statue. Somebody in the audience may be like, okay, well, she's not doing anything, so I don't have to lift my hands either. I don't have to clap
Right.
my hands either. I don't have to get
Right.
involved with this service either.
Right.
So having other worshipers around is definitely something that I feel is important. And last but not least, balance between singers, musicians, and everyone in between. You don't want to be a part of a worship team that has the singers doing one thing, musicians doing another thing. There needs to be a connection. So that's really important. The Bible talks about in Philippians 2:2 that we have to be of the same mind, having the same love, being of one
Mm-hmm.
accord and of one mind. So I think that it's important. It removes stress, it removes worry, because you don't want to be wondering, okay, what are the musicians going to be next? How am I do next? How am I going to relay this to my team?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important that everybody's on the same page.
So here's a question, and I heard a lot of things. You talked about balance. You talked about having a leader who has a heart for worship. You talked about being in an atmosphere that's already cultivated for worship. So there are worshipers already there. You talked about the need for flexibility as the leader, right? And so a lot of times what I've found is that you can have a really good singer who thinks that they're a praise and worship leader.
Right.
And a lot of the things that you just touched on are things that I don't think that a lot of us singers would think about. But like, I can hit a note, I can sing that song,
Exactly.
I can do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that a part of me, what I've been seeing, the trend now is a lot of singers. It's a lot of singers. And I lose a little bit of the atmosphere. I lose a little bit of the presence. I lose a little bit of what I consider to be the anointing, because I think that sometimes people have not taken the time to study what a worship leader is, what a Levite is, all of those things, you know, because it's not just a stage, it's a responsibility. And the
So you
current
tapping into my
culture,
stuff.
did I? Hey,
Just
we
a little bit,
together.
but that's all right. We on one accord.
We there. Because I was thinking about that as you were talking, and even when you were saying about balance between the musicians and the singers, and honestly, even between the leader, because they also have a mantle on them that they have to carry forward, right? So we lead the procession, but we're setting the atmosphere for the actual word, because the word is a part of worship, which I think that people forget. People think that it's two separate things, but the word is actually a part of the worship. It's a part of the exhortation. You know what I mean? And I think that when we get to a place where we're open to what the actual real culture is, what the Bible describes as the culture, like what you said, like it shouldn't always have to be like this set thing. It has to be like this. There should be some flexibility. There should be an understanding on the worship leader and the leader of the house, that when the worship leader feels an unctioning from the Holy Spirit, that it has to flow, and vice versa. Like they should be on such one accord that they can, honestly, and this is going to sound really strange, but you already know me, that their spirits can communion, you know, be in communion, that they know that one is not overstepping the other, but is instead creating a ripe atmosphere.
Right.
Is that like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So let's talk about working in season or deciding you're not going to work.
Okay, so this is another struggle. I feel like this is one of those where you have to use your own discretion. I think you know your relationship with God. You know you're doing right. You know you're not doing right. You know you are in a season where you can serve right now. You know you're not in a season where you can serve right now. One of the things I wrote down is that basically We all go through things, we all deal with things, and we all have seasons in our lives where we question if serving is the best option for us. My first thought would be that my salvation always comes first. So if I'm in a season where I'm struggling to come serve, why am I coming to serve? I don't want to struggle with my own emotions, with my own being, and still try to serve, even though this serving may be what brings me out. It could also be burning me out as well. God called me to serve, but I also want to do it in decency. I also want to do it in order. So I think that it kind of has to be, you kind of have to get your place to yourself where you say, I know God called me to serve, but right now I can't serve right now. I need to let him deal with me separately so that I can serve to my fullest capacity.
So I have
So
a
that's why
question
I
for you.
feel, yeah.
So you said something. You said that if you serve and you know that now is not a good time and it'll drain you, do you think that it'll drain the body?
The body of the church, or you as a
The body of
person?
the church.
Absolutely, because
I do too.
somebody somewhere is going to know that you're not in a place where you should be serving. That person is going to see you serving and wonder, instead of focusing on the worship, they're going to be wondering, why is that person up there? So
Exactly.
it not only, I don't want to say it looks bad, but it looks bad.
Right.
You
Well, and
know?
the word says, don't let your good be ill spoken of. So even if
Right.
you're trying to walk out a heart of servanthood, if you are not in the right place to be effective, it's not doing any good. Even if you
Correct.
came from a place of, oh, I know I'm called to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think too, it's hard when I'm listening to you talk about that. I think that even if someone doesn't know what you have going on in your personal life, because there are such things as soul ties and spirits on you, and you're not in a place, like you're in a growing season, you need to be fed and nurtured and things like that.
Right.
Even if someone doesn't know exactly what it is, because spirits know spirits, that could be a thing too.
Yeah.
That could be a thing too.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things that I talked about, because for some people, serving could be a way of coming out, and that's fine. So
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
can be encouragement or inspiration to someone. Man, this girl has this, and this going on, but she's still giving her all to God. So it can go both ways. But again, I feel like it has to be one of those things where you know within yourself, you know what God has told you. If He's told you to sit down, sit down. Don't use it as a way to say, well, let me keep serving just in case this might be bringing me out. Like,
That's not
no,
how it
you need to
works.
go sit down. Just stop. That's my opinion on
Yeah,
that.
because you talked about listening to God's yes.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about that in the beginning, and I think that it's
Yeah,
just as important to listen to his no.
yeah, exactly.
I
It's
think
not
we've
that he
gotten
doesn't
to a place
want you to serve, but
that
you can't half step it.
nope,
And you
nope.
just can't wake up every Sunday wondering if you're going to be okay once you make it to church to serve. If serving is something that you want to do, take the time to recuperate and do what you need to do to come back so you can serve and capture hearts like you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, yeah, because I feel like you have to serve, excuse me, wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because
Definitely.
even in your broken place, even in your broken place, like you said, you can find your healing in your praise. You can do that. You
Mm-hmm.
can worship your way out, all of those things. But if you're never allowing yourself to effectively be healed in your private time, in your quiet time, even when you're under leadership and listening to the word, it's never going to get better. You're always going to dwell in your broken place. And at some
Yeah,
point, as the leader, you're going to take somebody with you because that's your role.
exactly.
That's your role. Even
Yeah.
if you didn't mean to, somebody's going.
Somebody. Yeah. And the Bible talks about worshiping in spirit and in truth. So I really think it's about knowing your truth, knowing
Yes.
what is really keeping you from being able to serve at the moment. Be okay with that truth so that you can heal fully and come back and
I
serve.
love it. I love it. What's our next question?
Um,
Because clearly
um,
I'm going off my phone.
challenges of worship leaders.
Oh, okay.
So I only have four, but I feel like they're about 10 million.
You only
But
have four.
I only have today. I only have four. We can
Okay.
do
Okay.
part two another time.
Okay.
But no,
Okay.
I only have four because these are the ones that really stuck out. And again, I feel like it's stuff that people wouldn't really think about.
Okay.
So common challenges of worship leaders. Number one,
Hey, Tora.
I mean,
Go ahead. I'm listening.
oh, I was well, not in tune with the people. Hey, everybody. I didn't want to get distracted. Girl, yeah, you know me. So yeah, common challenges of worship leaders. So most people, I'm guilty of it, would feel like a challenge, even though these are challenges of worship leaders, would be dealing with musicians who didn't practice, or dealing with singers who didn't learn songs. But as I matured as a Christian, I realized that a huge struggle was making time in my busy life to find personal time and personal space to worship in preparation for my worship. That's a huge challenge, because a lot of times we don't think about it. We just show up. I know the song, I know the music. Let's do
I can
it.
make it happen.
But have you actually set aside time to worship God on behalf of whoever you're going to be ministering to? Have you asked God to allow these songs to penetrate hearts and touch minds and heal souls? Or are you just showing up to do a performance?
You show
So
up
I
and
think
show
that
out.
exactly. So I think that a huge challenge is actually not only taking the time to seek God on behalf of those songs, but to also realize that it's important and it's something that needs to be done on a consistent basis.
Not just Wednesday and Sunday. Can I throw that out there? Because
right.
I think that if we come to the place of understanding that there are going to be challenges with our team members, but that the effective building of our team starts within ourselves, we'll see a difference in the actual culture of
Exactly.
praise
And
and
that's
worship
exactly
right
what I
now.
wrote down.
You know what I mean?
That was in my notes. But I never stick to my notes, so.
What's the next
But yeah,
one?
that was there. Yeah. Meet with God in your hiding place. And I mean, I know that other things get frustrating, but this is number one, making sure you have that one-on-one time with God. Just imagine if every single person on the worship team is spending 20-30 minutes alone with God a day. Can you just imagine what our worship would look like?
Crazy.
I think it'll be right. So I feel like that's something that just has to happen, and it can be a challenge because we're all busy. Like hours fly by.
Yeah.
They just fly by.
Yeah.
But that's something that we have to make time for, and we have to initiate that contact with God.
Agreed.
Challenge number two, I think would be, and I guess it depends on what kind of ministry you're in, but I think would be being able to get the congregation to rise to a true place of worship, to get them out of that moment of distraction where they've just come into church. They're speaking to this person, they're speaking to that person. Church is starting, and I have to figure out how I'm going to get these people to rise up with me. I don't want to do it alone. So I think it's a struggle to get people out of that. Let me just watch and see what they're going to do first. And then I'll decide if I want to worship. Then I'll decide if I want to lift my hands. If I don't like this song, I'm not. If I don't know the words, I'm not. So I think that it's our job, and it could be a challenge, to make it interactive and to make it energetic enough to where people want to participate with us. Because at the end of the day, after you've done 3 services and you're going to service number 4, you don't feel like jumping up and down no more. But you have to,
right?
Because that could save someone's life. So that's definitely a challenge, and getting the whole team to be on board with that is a challenge as well, because everybody isn't into dancing, everybody isn't into stumping and clapping, everybody worships differently. So getting the team as a whole to do it all together in their own different way can be a challenge as well.
So
that wasn't even in my notes.
What? Hey. So here's a question for you. When you're talking about active engagement and investment of the congregation, and you mentioned how even the team members worship differently, do you think that it would probably be wise for worship leaders to consider having a team that does have different worship perspectives? Because that could probably engage the people differently if they see someone like them who's up. Do you think that could help with the culture?
Yeah, because you don't want someone to be stuck in the congregation seeing one thing where they're like, well, they're just clapping, so I'm not going to jump, even though I really want to jump right now. Just like what's the guy that used to go to Pastor Skippy? He didn't care.
Yes.
He skipped around. None of us were up there skipping. So
Yes.
we need more people like that who are
Agreed.
going to be okay with worshiping in their own way. And I feel like it's up to us to show them that that's okay. Even though I'm just clapping or lifting my hands,
Right.
you do what you have to do. That's okay.
Yes.
So I think that that's important because it gets you to a place where even though you're all doing separate things or worshiping in your own way, it shows everyone else that I can be me at this ministry. I don't have to worry about who's watching me. Michelle is over there lifting her hands. Rhonda's over there clapping her hands. Skippy's over there skipping. And it's okay.
And it's okay. Makes sense. Okay, I'm ready. What's the next one?
Number 3, and you was tapping into my stuff, but number 3 is keeping an attitude of worship or praise and not performance. So I'm guilty of this because you know good and well, if somebody do something weird on the keyboard or weird on the drums, you're going to pop out of that worship mode and be like, what are you doing?
Right.
And it's okay, but it's not okay because you know that's not how we rehearsed it, but you're going to do weird stuff anyway. And me or you or people that have an ear for everything and you hear it, it kind of knocks you out of that moment.
Yes.
So I kind of feel like it's important to prepare for the flukes and prepare for whatever may or may not happen in those moments. There's a really thin line between worship and performance. And I say that only because as a leader, we don't want to go before God giving him mess. And we want our stuff to be right. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's important to remember that God wants our hearts and not our perfection. So even though a drumstick might fall out of somebody's hand, it's not favorable, but we have to be okay with it. Because at the end of the day, we're there for a particular reason. We're serving for a particular reason. We're singing this song for a particular reason. And we don't want our distraction to distract someone else in the audience who might not have even noticed it because their ears don't hear what we hear. So.
Good point. Because there have definitely been Sundays where I'm like, oh, no, and those be the Sundays that people are like, oh my God, and you be like, what?
Yeah. Because they don't know.
They have no idea.
They have no idea. So that's why I think it's important to keep the facial expressions under control because they might not even know what's going on.
I think that's also
first of all, we're at rehearsal.
That's it. Because I think it's good too for those of us who are in leadership positions to remember that God called you to something. And even if you feel unqualified, or even if there's a service where you feel was subpar, he called you for a reason. So you don't always have to understand it and you don't always have to think it's great. It's for the people. It's for the people. It's not for you. Your gifting is not for you. We're created to bring him glory. It has nothing to do with us.
Right.
I think that's important to remember. So I agree with you totally.
Yeah.
What's
definitely.
number 4?
Number 4 is a lack of commitment. I think this is one of those challenges that speak for itself. I know that we all have agendas and some of them may be a mile long, but God chose us. And I firmly believe that our commitment to our gift and the purpose that he called us to is the starting point for keeping everything in line. And that's something that we always have to remember. Just plain and simple, we have to make time for God's business. I know that we're tired and I know that we're stressed out and we have to go to work and then basketball practice and then karate practice and then cheerleading practice and then we have to go grocery shopping. It's a lot. But at the same time, if we don't serve, who's going to do it? Especially if you know that God called you, your agenda unfortunately doesn't matter because his business is always first. His house, bless his house, he'll bless your house.
Yes.
So I just feel like you have to remove yourself entirely from I'm tired, I don't want to go, I'm just going to miss the night, but I'll show up on Sunday. That's not okay. Right. You need to prepare and you need to be there with your team and commit to that team. And I feel like that is another one of those things that will allow the team to grow beyond measure.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that's something that would probably be at the top of my list of your 4 would be commitment. Just because I feel so strongly about what we're called to. And I have
Right.
a hard time understanding why people say yes to something and then don't invest in it. Like I said,
Correct.
why did you waste your time? Why did you waste my time? Why did you waste God's time? And I
Yeah.
have to constantly take myself out of that and realize everyone's not at the same place. Everyone doesn't have the same calling and everyone doesn't have the
Mhm.
same perspective. And when we're
Right.
building teams, we have to be intentional with the people that we put up there because the
Yeah.
responsibility is on us. And we have
Yeah.
to, not only what we're asking of them to be committed, to invest their time, to be intentional, we have to do it ourselves because we're going to be the
Yeah.
examples. Because we're not only teaching our team to do these things, but as a body as a whole, because like I said, we lead the procession. So whatever we're doing is going to be mirrored in the body. So
Right.
it may take stages, it may take years, but we teach them as we grow. And I think that
Exactly.
our level of commitment, we have to start, just like you said, with us being intentional, carving out the time, and then being intentional with the people that we surround ourselves with and that we also call to the forefront.
Right. I
I
agree.
think it's super important.
Yeah.
Did we just cover all of our stuff?
I think we did. Let me
Eh.
play. Let's make sure. Yeah, we did. Go us. From
I
zero
am
to
so proud
hero.
of us. After what we just went through to get this video off, I am
I
proud.
know.
I am
Yes.
proud. I am so, 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 so proud. So I am not going to hold you, but I'm going to thank you for joining me tonight, babe. You were
Of course.
amazing.
You are so welcome.
God, I mean, it's amazing to listen to someone who is not only young, but who has also been through the fire with me and who is now doing it on her own, with
Yes.
finding her place and figuring out where you're going to be next, but also still growing where you are. I think that that's also what's
Right.
important. So, guys, thank you all so much for joining us. We are excited. We hope that you guys will comment and share your thoughts on this topic, the culture of praise and worship. We know that the culture is growing and that it is changing. It is not the same as when our parents were there, where they would tarry for hours, but it is a sweet presence that is now the current culture. And I think that Ryoanne and I had hoped in this conversation to encourage those leaders and those who are interested in joining in praise and worship and developing their praise and worship life to be intentional, that
That's
that
right.
is what the culture should be. It's not a stage, it's not a show, but it is intentionality and it is relationship. So,
Yes.
Ree, I love
I love
you.
you, honey. I'll see
I'll
you
see you
soon.
for real though. I will see
Mwah.
you soon.
Yes, for real. Mwah. Bye,
Bye.
y'all.